What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video, and this is the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda in the world, and of course right here on PlayerEssence you can look forward all year to awesome Legend of Zelda poll questions, comments, videos, Twitter posts, everything. We're definitely going to be showing some big love to The Legend of Zelda all throughout this year. So what I wanted to do was highlight one of the things that we're doing here on PlayerEssence, and that is the community polls. We had one up for The Legend of Zelda, and I wanted to read off what it was and some of you guys' answers because I thought this was fascinating to read through all of you guys' comments and to go through what you guys' favorite Legend of Zelda games are. So before we get into my top 5 games, we're gonna go ahead and get into this poll here and the results. So on the community poll, I asked you guys, what is your favorite The Legend of Zelda game of all time and why? And then here were the results. So at the bottom we have other, please list the Zelda games, which we'll get to. You guys will have a link to where you can go through it yourself. But then next up is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. That is the Super Nintendo game at 8%. At another 8% is The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. At 18% is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And at a whopping 53% of the 2.7K votes is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild for the community poll. So I wanted to read off a few of you guys' comments as well. So let's go ahead and first start off at the top here. The Ostrich says, Breath of the Wild is such a mind-blowingly good game that even the massive nostalgia I have for Ocarina and Wind Waker playing as a kid don't stand a chance against it. I've never had that happen before. LOL. Next up is Leo Oliveira and says, Ocarina. The story, the music, the gameplay, the dungeon design, and the message of the game is a totally different and special thing. Empty Channel gives us his top 3 games, number 1 being the Ocarina of Time, number 2 being Twilight Princess, and number 3 being Majora's Mask. Ketsuya says Twilight Princess. To me, it felt the most fun to play. The story was really enjoyable. The dungeons felt fair, not hard, not easy, an enjoyable balance to me. The art style was mad nice, and that soundtrack, God. And then we also have Jaff 2425 says, loved Breath of the Wild, but Majora's Mask is still my number 1. So awesome stuff to all the community pollers out there, all the elite ninja, the ninja out there going to the community poll and voting. I do appreciate that. Of course, if you want to get your comments featured, make sure you check out the community polls every single day in the morning. We do have new ones up. Vote and put your comments there, and you might end up in one of the videos here. So let's go ahead and get into this top 5 already, guys. I think it's time to get into my top 5 in terms of the Legend of Zelda games. So we're gonna go and start at the bottom here, number 5, and that is The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess HD, and just Twilight Princess in general. What I love about this game is, yeah, the dungeons are great. I've never been a huge, oh my gosh, I need dungeons and they need to do this and that. I'm all about the controls and the mechanics and the cool weapons and the combat. That's kind of the stuff that I like about The Legend of Zelda. Obviously, Z targeting was revolutionary for its time. So those are the things that I like the most, but I will say that Twilight Princess had some of the best combat in the series, and it had one of the most interesting dynamics and hooks to where you could have a wolf Link and you can have a regular Link, and that was pretty cool. And of course, Midna was sassy. She was right there on top of it. She was sharp, you know, so having Midna around there and the story and everything, I do think that Twilight Princess holds a special place in my heart. I do wish that I played the GameCube version first before I played the Wii version of the game, because I do feel that the Wii version is not as good as the GameCube version. So I guess if I had to rate them in order, because there's 3 separate versions of the game, I'd probably go with The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess HD, then I'd go with The Legend of Zelda on the GameCube, then I'd go with The Legend of Zelda on the Wii. But to be honest, all 3 games are the same thing. But the coolest thing about The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess HD is the gamepad and the inventory management. So much better on there. Instead of having to pause over and over in the map stuff, it's so good on there. So it's going to be interesting going back, if they do bring back the 35th anniversary Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess to the Switch, going back to how they did it before, but we'll see on that one. But at number 5 is The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Moving on to number 4, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. You guys might have not known that I like this one, but I do, and it's one of the old school style Zelda games that I absolutely love. The top over isometric type of view. You have some really good themes in this game. You have some fantastic level design. You have the dark world and everything. You have great enemies, and for the time on the Super Nintendo, the graphics there with The Legend of Zelda, they were mind-blowing. People were like, yo, look at this world, look at what you can do, look at Link, look at the different weapons, look at the fluidity of the game. It was fast, colorful, brilliant. I mean, everything about the game just had a touch of 16-bit super goodness in there. I mean, you just felt good when you played the game. You felt like, man, I'm really playing a next-gen system. You know, this is really a next-gen Legend of Zelda game. They stepped it up from the first game on the NES. Like, everything got a major bump, from music quality to levels, the size of the map. I mean, everything was there because this game, for me at least, Legend of Zelda was the original action adventure open world type of game that wasn't like a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Quest, that type of thing. It was this game, the original Legend of Zelda on the NES. So to see what they did on the Super Nintendo was really cool. And this game is still good to this day. You can play it on the Super Nintendo online, NSO. You can play it, I think it's on the Super Nintendo Classic. I mean, it's such a great game. People still play this game to this day, randomized and everything. So I am down. Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past at number 4. Moving in to number 3 is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This is the game that started the modern Zelda twist in the 3D era. This is a legendary game, and what else could I say about it? I know some of you guys might be a little bit tilted because it's number 3 on the list, but that's still really good. And Ocarina of Time, to me, like I said, it started that 3D action adventure type of game. This was the prototype that literally all 3D action games are built on, from Dark Souls and Demon Souls and all these different games, Darksiders, and all these games that came afterwards. You know, even like, I would say, stuff like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, they all looked at this because of one thing. And what is that one thing that Ocarina of Time did better than any game before its time? It was Z targeting. A way to manipulate the camera, a way to combat without it being sloppy all over the place like a Tomb Raider type of game on the PS1 or anything like that. You lock on the target, the camera follows you, you have access to like a backflip, a side dodge, and attacks. It was such a innovative and groundbreaking mechanic. Still to this day, Z targeting is being used by multiple games, and it's just amazing. Heck, I was doing it in, I think it was like Star Wars and other games, right? The Jedi Fallen Order. I mean, they're still using it. There isn't any evolved type of system outside of maybe like the Batman, where you just have like the directional inputs and you don't really like lock on like you do, then strafe around and stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of games, especially action adventure RPG games, they all use Z targeting still. So I'm very happy in terms of what Ocarina did, and you cannot deny the brilliance of the game with the storytelling and the graphics and what they did at that time in the late 90s. It was just spectacular, and that's why it's number 3 on the list. But getting into number 2, we have The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker HD. Phenomenal game. I know this might be higher than some of you guys might want to put up. I know on our poll here, it was underneath Ocarina of Time, and I get that because the original one is rough. But what I love about Wind Waker was the open feeling, was the open air, was the just like you can go anywhere. You can sail the seas. You have like the pirate theme. You can kind of just do what you want. It didn't feel as restrictive as other Zelda games at times. It just felt like you can just go and you can fight enemies and you can get different things and you can go on like these little like pirate raids on stuff. I mean, it was just dope. You had a cannon that was connected to your boat. I mean, you went down and saw Hyrule. I mean, there was just so many cool things about this game, and I love the art style. I thought the cell shading really fits well. It still looks good after all these years. And even if you look at The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker HD, it just looks beautiful. When they just took the game and put it there, it was just fantastic. So there's so many great things to love about it. And this was the first game in the Zelda series to where you can take enemies' weapons. There was stealth involved with different things, so they did a good job with that, which they retained some of that, you know, for later games. So I do love that about the game as well. So The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker HD, Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker, makes it to number 2 on the list. And number 1, I think you guys can all guess at this point, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. I mean, where do I start with this game? Like, when it first came out, I think I played like 10 hours straight and I didn't feel like doing anything else. And it came at a time in my life where I just got let go from a job and I was kind of down in the dumps a little bit. And I just needed something to do. I needed something to do outside of the other obligations that I did have. And this game fulfilled that. It fulfilled it, and it fulfilled it in a great way. Let's just talk about the open world. People talk about how the dungeons aren't very good. The game's not about dungeons. Heck, you don't even need to do the dungeons. Everything is right there at the palm of your hands. You have a blank canvas. You have this huge open world. That's not just an open world just to be an open world, because that's what a lot of these open world games do. It's just, hey, you can go there, but you can't really interact with the open world. Anywhere that you can see, for the most part, you can climb. If you have different, I don't know, like grass, you can cut it down. There's a tree right there, you can chop it down, you can go to the next side. You see different types of environmental things. For example, if it's really cold, well, you got to make sure that you keep yourself warm. It's really hot, you got to keep yourself cool. I mean, there are actual elements within the open world that affect the game. Sometimes even worse than what you would want, right? Like the rain coming down and slipping and all that. But I loved how they integrated everything as an optional type of thing. And I love how they enhanced the gameplay, to me at least, with a unique and amazing hook with the Sheikah Slate. The Sheikah Slate gives you access to all sorts of really cool things that lets you solve the game any way that you want to solve it. I mean, I've seen various different ways to solve shrines, which are great, because before in the past, you had to like go to these certain places with dungeons and do these different things to get stuff. Well, the shrines are optional. If you want to do it, you can. If you don't, you can leave, then come back to it later. And then they give you your upgrades. They give you your benefits when you beat it. So I love that about it, to where it was split up into smaller chunks, and the focus of the game wasn't on toiling around in dungeons all day or talking to townsfolk all day and doing all that, but it was about experiencing the actual wild, experiencing the open world, and being a true open world game with a bunch of really cool combat stuff, like the slowdown of time when you shoot the arrow. You also have the perfect dodging, you have the reflecting with the shield. There were so many cool things. And yes, they had the weapon breaking, which was kind of lame, but at the same time, they have a bunch of cool weapons, and you can take any weapon from pretty much any enemy, which is awesome as well. A vast array, arsenal of different weapons to use, armor, upgrading what you can do with that as well. It was just spectacular. To me, it was a spectacular experience that I don't think I've ever experienced with any other game. I mean, it gave me certain feelings with the gameplay and going through that I've never experienced before, and I haven't experienced in a long time when it comes to the open world game. It was truly unique, almost like Ocarina of Time with the pioneering of the Z targeting. I think The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, while it didn't pioneer an open world game, but it pioneered a different style of open world game that a lot of people have started to copy. Genshin Impact, Horizon Forbidden West is going to do some stuff like that. You're starting to see a lot of games now use the whole climbing mechanic in the open world and collecting and doing different things like it did in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So it set its own precedent going forward, so I had to give it the #1 spot, because I never thought that you can actually make a super unique and innovative open world game, considering there's been 5 billion of them. But The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild said, no, we can do that, and we can make it even better than what you expected. And it just blew me away when I played it. So it has to go to the top spot there. But those are my top 5. What are you guys' top 5? I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all the latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.